And we'll begin this hour with Minnesota Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar. She chairs the Senate Rules Committee, which investigated security breakdowns on January 6th. Senator Klobuchar, thank you very much. Let's start by getting your reaction to everything that we learned that was not done to help the men and women defending the Capitol, because you and Senator Blunt drilled down on the breakdown of communications among the different law enforcement groups, in a really granular and productive way. And they were restructured afterwards. But what about the fact that this president did not accept a call from the Pentagon, which was trying to offer help?
Unbelievable to me. The first thing I thought of was all the members, including myself, members of Congress, trying to fill the void for the president. I was on the phone with police officers trying to get members out of their offices and that were in unsafe situations to get them to a safer place. I thought of other senators who were talking to military leaders, multiple ones trying to get help, and there the president sat. General Walker, who at the time was commanding the Washington, D.C. National Guard, said to us in our hearing, every second counted. Every minute counted. And then you picture our commander-in-chief, who has a constitutional duty to execute the laws of the United States, sitting in the dining room, as we saw last night at the hearing with that map. It showed exactly where he was sitting, just watching it on TV while like a spectator. He incited it. He told his people who he knew were armed, we now know, to march down the mall. And then he did nothing to stop it, despite multiple people asking him to do so. I think one of the more moving visuals for me that came out of our earlier Senate hearings to restructure security was about the National Guard. We're sitting in a bus, and they didn't even get, because they didn't have the order, they didn't even get to the Capitol till hours and hours after the insurrection had started. Think about the difference that a president could have made who took his constitutional oath seriously and didn't flaunt the laws of the United States.
The committee also took pains to just show the White House floor plan and to say that it would just be a matter of steps for the president to walk to the press briefing room and be on air immediately, that there are journalists there, or minutes if you wanted to bring those members of the press to the Oval Office. He could do it quickly. I also want to mention, though, some new reporting from Jonathan Swan at Axios about what a second Trump administration could look like if he did win, including purging potentially thousands of civil servants and filling career posts with filling career posts with loyalists to Donald Trump and his America First ideology. This is about an executive order F, as it's described, and just categorizing thousands of employees in the administration for not being loyal to the president, the deep state, as he so liked to call it during his administration. Do you fear this sort of thing? I know House member Jerry Connolly has brought it up to try and stop it in legislation.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to concede for a minute that Donald Trump's going to be a president again. When you look at the people, what people think of him out there, independent voters and the like. Secondly, I would have impeached him. I think you know that. He was impeached. We simply didn't have enough Republican votes to put it over the edge. And third, there's multiple negotiations going on about this guy. And of course you fear what would happen if someone like this and what they could do with this power. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we're working on a bipartisan basis to fix the Electoral Count Act, which this should never have gone down the way it did that day. And it's certainly the reason why we've not only shored up the security at the Capitol, but why the January 6th House Select Committee on a bipartisan basis is continuing their work. We can't close our eyes to what happened. The facts have to come out. And big surprise, as a former prosecutor, I know how this works. More and more people are coming forward because they've watched this on TV and they realized, well, this person told the truth. I'm going to come forward and say what I know.
What is your take as a former prosecutor on whether or not you think a former president could be indicted now, given a lot of the evidence that even was revealed last night?
Exactly. That is going to be up to the Justice Department. You heard from Attorney General Merrick Garland just this week when he spoke to the fact that these investigations are continuing. Over 800 people have now been charged, Andrea. And the way these things work, you get information, not just from the hearings, which are incredibly important for the public accountability, but you get information from people who talk after they're charged with crimes. And that is what it appears is happening right now.
But the people who've been prosecuted so far are these frontline people, the people, you know, Oath Keepers and others, Proud Boys, who were there rioting. They weren't at the high levels. You're not talking about the people, you know, involved, you know, the Rudy Giuliani's, frankly, and the others who were talking to him on January 6th. That call.
Well, some of the mid leaders and leaders of these groups have more information than the people that were on the front lines. And there's many ways to get information. As you know, there have been search warrants and other things going on. Which is good about our system of government, of course, don't know about all the details about what's going on at the Justice Department, because that is a non-political body over there and they're doing their job. But I just know, as my experience as a prosecutor, that these cases, you get information from people that come forward. I've had cases in my old job that we got information years later after a crime had occurred and prosecuted it. So I don't know what's out there. What I do know, I will say, to me, the most extraordinary development of the week was the audio tape of Steve Bannon, in which he literally put out there on the record in his own voice before the election that this was Donald Trump's plan all along, that he was going to declare he won even when he didn't. That's one of his closest advisors sharing his plan on the record. To me, this is damning evidence.
We did see that. And to be fair, Donald Trump said it himself multiple times for multiple years that there was no way he could lose unless it was rigged. He was signaling it for months before the election. He signaled it in 2015 and 2016. First, when he thought he was going to lose the primaries, then when he thought he was going to lose at the RNC, they were going to give it to Ted Cruz instead. And then on Election Day in 2016, when he thought he was going to lose to Hillary Clinton. And then we saw it again in 2020 when he did lose to President Biden.
And one more thing in the lead up was the attack on mail-in ballots and the like, because that to me is further evidence that showing he was doing this to undermine the election. He knew very well that all the votes wouldn't be counted on Election Day, right? And he then sowed that distrust in the system, leading in, one, trying to suppress votes, yes, but also leading up to the case that he falsely made that the votes weren't there or the votes were somehow fraudulent. And then, of course, seeking out people like the Secretary of State of Georgia to actually fraudulently give him his vote. So I just think that there are so many things leading up to this. And the January 6th Commission, the Select Committee, for the first time, well, maybe we all know bits and pieces, has been able to lay it out for the American people.
And Steve Bannon saying that this was a weakness for the Democrats, that their votes would come in, come in later, and that they would exploit it. Just very quickly, as an American, are we going to have a secure democracy? Can we have a secure democracy going forward if the president is above the law in this circumstance?
First of all, we know in America the law is king. The president isn't king. We know that the fact that we can have investigations like this move forward, that we have a democracy that has been able to respond in so many ways to this, including making sure that these investigations go forward on the Justice Department side. That's what a democracy does. And it's not easy. I know that. It's very important to fix this Electoral Count Act. It's one of the reasons, as chair of the Rules Committee, I'm calling a hearing on this going forward. You have to respond and build trust. And by the way, the other way you build trust is by getting things done. And I can't help but add this to our discussion, and that is we're finally moving on this CHIPS bill to increase Americans' competitiveness in the world. I believe we're going to allow for negotiation of prices under Medicare to finally bring down pharmaceutical prices, something I've been working on for over a decade, that we're going to get this done in the next few weeks. There's a strong possibility we could put gay marriage, enshrine it into law, despite a Supreme Court that is out of whack and out of sync with the American people. This is how you move forward and build trust. You do it by, one, taking on the outrageous things that happened since Donald Trump and all of the bad stuff that he stands for when it comes to our democracy, and you're willing to take him on. But there's a second part of it, and that's keeping moving ahead for our country. And you got to do both things at once.
Amy Klobuchar, thank you so much, Senator. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.